Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another review. And the review I'm about to look at is for a much loved franchise. You know, there's been a lot of anticipation around this movie, similar to the anticipation that was around Deadpool and Wolverine. You know, this is for me one of the best franchises still. I don't think there has been like a terrible film within this franchise. I think they've went from being fantastic, scary, action-packed to just, okay. But I would never say that there's a terrible film within the franchise. And of course, I'm talking about Alien or Aliens, however you like to look at it. And we're looking at Alien Romulus, the next entry within the Alien franchise. So this series started way back in 1979 thanks to the creative mind of Ridley Scott. Then you had James Cameron, who upped the ante with Aliens, and the first two are the ones that everyone goes back to as, the best in the series. Then you had Alien 3 that came out in 1992. You then had Alien Resurrection that came out in 1997. And if you wanted to include the Alien vs. Predator films, you've got the one Alien vs. Predator 2004, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, which came out in 2007, which is just pure garbage in my opinion out of all of the films. So I'm not really including that in this because it's not for me connected to like these films that I'm about to talk about. And then you've got the prequel films, Prometheus 2012, and then Alien Covenant, which came out in 2017. And now we are getting Alien Romulus. And what I will say straight off the back with Alien Romulus, it has a lot of positives, but it's also a film that by film's end has had a few frustrations with. So I need to be honest about that. So let's crack on and talk about Alien Romulus. So first and foremost, the plot is, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Now that's the plot synopsis. Now, the film itself is directed by a really talented director, and that is Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake. He also did the Don't Breathe franchise. He did those films. I've only ever seen the first one of those, and I really enjoyed it. And he is a very talented director, and I think he was the perfect choice to direct a future Alien film, and he's did a pretty good job with this, but like I say, it does have some frustration points for me. So let's look at the cast. So the cast consists of Caliee Spaeny as Rain, an orphan miner, David Jonsson as Andy, an android reprogrammed by Rain's father as her surrogate brother, Archie Renaux as Tyler Kay's brother and Ray's ex-boyfriend, Isabela Merced as Kay, Tyler's pregnant sister, Spike Fearn as Bjorn, Tyler and Kay's cousin, and Aileen Wu as Navarro, a pilot and Bjorn's girlfriend. So that's the main cast. It's a very young cast within this movie, which give this franchise for me personally a bit of a fresh air take on it. Give it a new lick of paint that it desperately needed. And, it's seeing it from a different perspective and putting a different spin on it. So straight away, for me, I was interested and invested because of, this kind of new, idea of bringing in these new younger castmates who have got no experience, have got no kind of already connections to, the world that they're involved in when it comes to, the aliens themselves. So the plot itself for me starts off very, very strong. It really, really does. So you have the character of Rain, who is on this horrendous planet. Honestly, it's like their version of hell, I guess, for these poor, poor people. They're on a planet that is called, I've just had the name there. They're on this horrendous planet, that a mining planet and also a farming planet, I believe, under the control of Wayland and Yutani. And Wayland and Yutani, they're running this horrendous mining station. It's colonized. There's no sunlight at all. It's 100% of the time in darkness. And Rain and all these characters I've mentioned are on this horrendous planet serving their time. They've all signed contracts to be on this planet to mine the orbs or to do the farming. And Rain's contract is coming up, and she goes initially with her stepbrother, Andy, who is like a synthetic android, who is like there to be with her, to try and, she goes up to the counter, the human office, I guess you could call it, to basically say, guess what, I want, my time's come up, I've served my time, my contract's coming up, I would like to be, located to another planet and reassigned to another job or whatever the case may be. But what ends up happening is the lady at the desk tells her that Wayland Yutani have extended her contract and she has to remain on the planet for another 5 years. Obviously, she's devastated, she's crushed. Andy, even though he's a synthetic android, is very like childlike in many ways. And this is when she meets up with her old friends and her ex-boyfriend, who basically tells them they've discovered a signal and they've discovered above the planet, hovering above the planet, asteroid rings, is what they believe is a derelict or, decommissioned spaceship, which they believe has, cryopods in that they can sleep in to make it to another planet and, live out their lives there and get away from this shithole, this hellhole. And that's what ends up happening. They all get together, they end up going up into space. And this is when they discover that it's not an actual derelict spaceship, but a new discovered derelict space station, which is also a scientific research station called Romulus and Remus. It's split into 2 parts. One, I guess, is the research side. The other side, I guess, is more or less where, the members of the space station live and, are occupying the command center. And obviously during this time, they then discover, it's an absolutely atmospheric, dark, claustrophobic, kind of dingy, intense place to be. And this is when all hell breaks loose, because as they are trying to find a way to get these cryopods onto their ship so they can sleep on a journey to get to this other location to live out a new life, they accidentally awaken facehuggers. And when they awaken the facehuggers, that's when the good stuff starts. And that's when all hell breaks loose. So after that part, it's the first 2 acts of this movie are very, very much, a mixture of Alien and Aliens. There's a mixture of intense atmosphere. You're on the edge of your seat. It's very, very much as we've expected from previous Alien movies in terms of tone, setting, and what they were able to do to make you kind of, cling onto these characters to see what would happen to them. the action parts in the first two part is all to do with the face huggers. The face huggers for me are the star of this movie. You know, even the movie poster is highlighting the face huggers. You know, the face huggers are taking central stage, and you know we've seen the face huggers in the past and what they're capable of, but what they did with them in this movie was, you know, really exciting. You know, you got to see more than one. You got to see like herds of space huggers in this movie. You know, I think there's about 33 of them that's released all at one time, which is fucking scary to think of these little horrible bastards crawling around the space station in the dark, hunting you down. It's quite scary to believe. But obviously, this, you know, as I progress through the plot, obviously, if you've read the description below, this is a spoiler review. And if you haven't seen the film, then please switch off. But if you have seen the film, if you want, continue. Either way. But as the film progresses, you know, and the face huggers are being released. The character of Rain, you know, and all of that stuff, they are absolutely realize they are out of their depth. And, you know, this is when they go to, I guess, the science station or the science lab within the space station, and they discover on the floor a synthetic android called Rook, who is, I guess, the science officer. And the science officer is, you know, he has a very familiar face. He, you know, they've used, you know, CGI to recreate the face and the image of Ian Holmes, who, you know, sadly passed away. But he, as you know, played the synthetic android Ash in the original Alien movie. So that was an amazing good throwback. The downside of that is the CGI with his look is not that, you know, great. You know, there are sides when I say the CGI and he looks great on certain shots. Then there's other sides of it where the CGI could have heavily been improved. And it's kind of upsetting that, you know, this film is majority practical effect heavy. You know, all of the CGI, or should I say, the majority of the facehugger scenes are done via puppetry and animatronics and stuff like that. There's probably a handful of scenes, if you jump and miss it, that are CGI, even with the alien scenes, which is also, in my opinion, one of the downfalls later on in the movie, which I'll explain. But Ian Holmes' look in this film, or shall I say, the character of Rook, who is meant to be, you know, another synthetic, they could have done a better job with the CGI, but I do like how they're paying homage to the past movie. That's a direct link to Alien, and just like how the character Ash turned out to be, you know, I guess an antagonist, Rook does become, as the film progresses, the I guess the human or the android antagonist of this film. So obviously he explains exactly what the Romulus and Remus space station is. You know, it's revealed basically because right at the beginning, before we see the scenes on the planet with these characters that we're introduced to, we do see a past scene where we see the debris of the Nostromo from the original Alien movie and the carcass of the original alien that was on that ship's discovered and brought in for testing. And I don't know how it's done it. They don't really fully explain a lot, but they clearly must have done something like took the DNA from the alien from the Nostromo, you know, debris, and took its DNA and were able to clone face huggers and clone basically them, and then did scientific experiments that obviously drastically went wrong because, like I say, this space station is now abandoned also. But you find all that out through this character of the events of he is basically, there, this is what's transpired, and if they want to get off this basically space station, they need, to be able to gather like these cryo containers of cryo fuel that are going to power the cryopods, because the pods at the minute have only got enough power in them to keep the pods active for 3 years, and the nearest planet that they're trying to get to is 9 years away. So they have to somehow figure out to get these pods from the other side of the ship to be able to power the cryo pods to get to this new planet. And to get there, they have to go through the lair of the facehuggers. They then have to face off against the new xenomorph, which happens to happen thanks to the character of Bajour's girlfriend, who is who the facehugger attaches itself to. The character of Navarro, she is unfortunately the victim this time around. That is, who gets attached by the facehugger. And the first 2 acts are really very much enjoyable. I really enjoyed them. I loved the build-up. I loved how it paid tribute to past films. Like, obviously, I've mentioned the cloning elements, or connected to Alien Resurrection. The atmosphere, the tone of the movie, the look of the movie is very much that of Alien. In the facehugger, situation, that for me reminded me of elements of Alien. And it was also original and something different. And like I say, the whole plot is unique, stands out, and it's the fact that you've got these civilians that haven't got a damn clue how to handle these things, and they've got to make the best of a bad situation. The third act, though, when they are having to retrieve these, cryogenic, energy, the energy for the cryopods, this is where the film for me takes, a dark turn. Going back to the characters, we've found out this information. You've got Kay, you've got Rain, Andy, and Tyler that are going off to get these energy sources. At the same time, you've had Kay, the sister who's pregnant, who, during the time of the character Navarro's chest bursting scene, she, Bajourn, and Bajourn, Navarro, and Kay are back on this initial little space ship that they used to get up to the space station. They basically, crashed into the hangar of the Romulus side of the space station, away from the Remus side, out of panic and out of trying to get away and leaving them behind during the initial facehugger chase scene. And so they're on that side and they're on the other side, and then you get to see a uniqueness. The facehugger, chest bursting scene, the chest burster scene, for me, isn't anything we haven't seen before. What made this film unique is that we've always seen the chest buster, come out and crawl away. And then the next time you see the chest burster, it's a full-on xenomorph. What I liked about this is when Kay wakes up after the crash and wakes up after the chest burster scene, she, goes out and she's in the hangar bay, and Bajour's there, and they're trying to get away, and they come across this giant cocoon on the wall. And the cocoon basically is the next stage of evolution from chestburster to alien, and you see the fully formed alien coming out of this cocoon, not before the first best kill in the movie, which is a massive acid kill thanks to Bajourn. Bajon, sees that this thing cocooning, it's starting to hatch, and he uses this taser that he found in the lab to try and, kill the alien, what he thinks he has. But then, unfortunately, he gets covered in acid, which obviously melts his fingers off, melts his, he starts to fall on his chest, and he dies of basically acid poisoning. And this is, halfway through the movie. It's the part of, I guess, the second act of the movie, where Kay is there on the other side of a door, and you see the character of Rain, Angie, and her brother, and they basically say I got kidnapped by the xenomorph that's burst out of the cocoon. And this is where the film, for me, after the second act and the two amazing strong acts, this is where I get frustrated. And why I get frustrated in the third act of the movie is because you've had these two amazing, the story from the beginning to now is different, it's unique. I've said this before, and it's really an interesting concept. The face hugger scenes were fantastic. Like I say, it's got all the alien, tropes that we're known of from the past films, with a few added features that we haven't seen before that made this, unique and stand out for all the right reasons. And then the last act of the movie is them trying to, get this, Rook, has sent them down to this lab to get this container that's full of this black evolutionary liquid, similar to what we've seen in Prometheus. And basically, it's the experimentations and all of the findings and the research of what they were doing on the space station, and they've been tricked by Rook to get this. And this is where you see the other end of his character showing his true colours, that this chemical is basically, it's called Prometheus fire. So there's another connection to Prometheus, and it's a liquid that injected it heals your bones, it makes you well if you're ill, but then as it transpires, boom, your body starts to twist and jerk and explode or deform or become, because it's mixed in with alien DNA, you mutate into something. And 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to die when you mutate and are formed. And to get from there, after they get the alien DNA or the Prometheus fire, which, of course, is also not just through Rook, but through Andy, whose program slightly changed through this, I guess, chip that was inserted in him as well, which changed his personality slightly, and he's more on Rook's side than he is Rain's side. As they're progressing through to get to the other side, they then discover the bottom half of the Romulus space station is completely covered in xenomorph layer. We've seen it in Aliens, and how you have the walls are all covered in this plasmatic substance, this black, stuff. So that is where the aliens have been kept throughout all the plot of the movie, and they have to try and get from there to the other side to get back to the hangar bay, back to the space station, before the Romulus and Remus space station crashes into the rings of this planet, the Saturn type rings of the planet. And for me, I was getting excited for this part. I could not wait to finally get my hands on the xenomorphs and see all the deaths and all the battles and all the, the gory action. But unfortunately, this is where the film for me was a letdown, and I was frustrated because, like I say, there's very little CGI. The CGI is majority, I guess, on the spaceship scenes taken off from the planet. The character of Rook, he's completely CGI. I'm taking a few of the little glimpses here and there of the of this. The face huggers were CGI. The chest burst, I think, was a puppetry. But this is why I think it's a downfall, or it just didn't work as well with the xenomorphs being 100% practical in this film, because you don't really get much action with the xenomorphs. They really are a third, not even a secondary character. I would say they're like a fourth act character in this. They're like a really small cameo. You just see a handful of them coming towards them when they realize that they're outnumbered, the heroes of this film, and they have to try and track back to get to escape. And that's where I was really disappointed in this, is that the trailers really played a part on the xenomorph and it being featured heavily in this movie and really being, unique and different and standing out. And that didn't happen with this. It didn't really stand out for me, the xenomorphs. What happened is they were just a side character. And the way they used the xenomorphs in the film, there wasn't much action with them. There's only one amazing kill with them. And that's the character of Tyler, who's basically sacrifices himself or tries to distract the xenomorphs, and he dies like in a very unique, bloody way. With he gets strung up by the alien, the xenomorph, and he gets hit in the eye by the inner jaw. That flaps out of the main mouth of the xenomorph, which was really well done and executed. After that, the only other unique bit of this movie that really stood out for me was the zero gravity scenes. There's scenes in this where they turn off the gravity to make the xenomorphs float in air so they have a rifle that can easily target them and shoot them down. Now, that scene was brilliant. There was acid floating in zero gravity. They were having to try to maneuver around the acid to try and escape. That for me, spot on. Great creatively stood out, and it was another great original element for this movie for me personally. And then we get to the final act where you think all's well. They've managed to escape from the xenomorphs. They've managed to, stop Rook from getting his hands on the research that he's going to deliver back to Wayland and Yatani. And they've basically escaped from the Romulus and Remus space station, which is now heavily crashing into the rings of this planet, and they're now just surviving on this small spaceship that they originally flew up to the planet for. And this is where things just go totally crazy for me. Kay, as you know, is pregnant, like as we know in the plot, but with Kay is injured, and as I mentioned before, you have that you have the research, which is the Prometheus fire, where if you inject it, it heals your bones, it can cure you. So when they are trying to get away and they leave her in the elevator, she injected herself with this chemical, and she gets put into one of the cryopods, which suddenly grows red, and when they open it, there's this horrendous, and it's very brutal and gory. She basically gives birth to an alien egg, which then gives birth to a human-alien hybrid, which we had seen previously in Alien Resurrection. Now, it's well done. The alien-human hybrid looks more human in this than he does in the previous one. I think he looks like one of the aliens from Prometheus right at the beginning. The Procura aliens or whatever they were called. that we see in the original Prometheus. In the Prometheus, he looks more like that than he did human, in my opinion. And there's basically, it takes, elements from aliens and Alien Resurrection, and the outcome is just like an Alien Resurrection, just like an Alien. The hero antagonist Rain should just basically suck as that thing and gets it, blew out into outer space through the airlock of the ship, and it ends with them floating into outer space, basically living their lives in cryo status, hoping they're going to reach some other planet. So that is where the film left off. So it's basically left it open for this character to become the new, hopefully, hero of this franchise. But Rain was fantastic. The cast were fantastic. I loved the first two halves. I just got very frustrated with how the film took a bit of a nosedive in the last, the third act of this film. For me, I found it very frustrating. It had a lot of creativeness, but I generally believe that something tells me this is not due to the director, but studio interference. There's a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of little mini tributes to past films within the franchise. But the main things that stand out, the positives, are the tremendous cast in this. They all did a great job. I definitely think out of all of the cast members, though, I think David Jonsson, who plays Andy, the synthetic android, he is a star in the making. Marvel, they got rid of Kang. If they only knew, I think he would have been a great replacement to play Kang. He definitely has star power or star making power after this performance in this film. Caliee Spaeny, she does a great job in this, but I kept looking at her and thinking I'm looking at Jennifer Lawrence. She has a very similar look to Jennifer Lawrence, and she did a great job. All of the actors did a great job. The story itself in the beginning for me was unique and different, and it was nice to see them try something different. And, the first two acts it felt like Alien, it felt like Aliens. It had us on the edge of my seat. I was hooked, especially the face hooker chase scenes. And then the third act, apart from two specific elements, the zero gravity scene and the scene with, when they initially discover the alien lair, for me was really exciting. After that, for me, the third act very much felt flat, and I was kind of disappointed in the end. But do I think it's a terrible film? Absolutely not. It's still an enjoyable film. I still enjoyed it. I still would recommend it if you're a fan of Aliens. The gore elements of this, I think, are also, if you're expecting a lot of gore, a lot of blood, a lot of, alien, carnage, you will be disappointed in that with this. The star in this is the human cast and the face huggers. The human cast and the face huggers are the stars. I like how they connected this with Prometheus, with the Prometheus fire, the cloning from Resurrection. They talk about cloning in this, Prometheus fire in this. They then obviously have that connection to the original movie, as they've used the remains of the original xenomorph to get the DNA to do cloning and to create these new darker coloured face hookers. It is inventive stuff and it is fun, but I just think the third act does not live up and was slightly disappointing. The first two acts, brilliant. So, it builds up and builds up, but the final act does not live up to what the first two acts kind of pushed on where I was going towards. And I do not believe in my mind this is the director, is fault. There's something in my mind tells me this was it. Studio interference. Generally do. It's claustrophobic, it's atmospheric, it has that alien tone to it, but then by the end, it kind of drifts away. And the other only negative I would say about this, and I was messaging a friend and she brought it up. There's this particular scene where they use a classic line from one of the previous movies, and when it's said, it just falls very, very flat. And it in the screening that I went to, nobody bat an eyelid, nobody, made a sound. It was like they didn't care because it just didn't hit the way it did, and it felt very forced. It didn't feel as if it was genuine. It felt like this line had to be placed in this film just as another Easter egg to past movies, and it just does not, for me, hit the mark or fit in this particular movie. It just feels out of place and forced. So that's another negative, but the positive, like I say, is the story was different. The civilians just want to get away from this hellhole planet that are trying to better themselves, and they're all younger people that have got no military scientific experience. They're basically like scavengers, and they just get caught up in this situation that's out of their league, and all hell breaks loose. All of the actors did a fine job. Like I say, Jonsson, he's going to be a star in the making. Spaeny, I think he's going to be big, but like I say, she's very much like a younger Jennifer Lawrence to me. If I had to rate this movie, I would probably rate it 7 out of 10. And where would I fit this movie in the overall scope of the other Alien movies? I definitely would say number 1 is Aliens. Number 2 is Alien. Number 3, believe it or not, I'm keeping Alien 3 where it is, because despite the hate that movie gets, I did not mind it. I still thoroughly enjoy Alien 3, and it's very much similar to Alien Romulus of having these prisoners on a shithole of a planet that are out of their league, taking on this law outer world threat. This is very similar to this. And then after that, after Alien 3, I'd probably go Prometheus, then Alien Romulus, then I'd go probably Alien Resurrection, and then Alien Covenant, because I'm not a fan of Alien Covenant. I just don't know. I just couldn't get with it. But that's how I would rank the movies in order of the best to the worst, in my opinion. But like I say, 7 out of 10 for Alien Romulus. Great cast, unique story. The first 2 halves really deliver. The first one, the third act, falls flat, in my opinion, and relies on too much Easter eggs and things that we've already seen, apart from the zero gravity scene. That is something that was so different. But I also agree they could have done a lot more with it. And like I say, the facehuggers rule, and the aliens, the xenomorphs, they became a side character to the facehuggers this time round. But that's just my opinion of Alien Romulus. And, there's rumours, or, well, not rumours, but the director of this, Fede Alvarez, he's got an idea for an Alien versus Predator movie. And I would just say, give him it. Give him it. Let him have a go. Let him see what he can do with Alien and versus Predator, because this is not a terrible movie. Like I say, it's got 2 great acts, but the third act falls flat for me. But he did a decent job, and he's a fine director. And I'm sure whatever he came up with for an Alien versus Predator movie would be better than the previous ones we've already had. Alien versus Predator, the first one was okay, but it just didn't hit the mark for me. I was expecting a lot more than what we got. And I'm not even going to bring up the second one. But yes, this has been the entertainment headquarters. This has been, another review. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check out the rest of the content on the channel. Please hit share, like and subscribe if you want. And keep on loving your movies. Keep on loving all things entertainment. And of course, as always, I'll catch us all at the next one.